So I'd like to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. He's half elder statesman, half rock star. Don Tapscott has written 16 books. His first bestseller, Paradigm Shift, was published in 1992. He's the author of, or the co-author with his son of, Alex Tapscott, of Blockchain Revolution, and he's a very valued and trusted member of the Chamber's Board of Advisors. He has a special exclusive Blockchain Summit announcement, and he's going to share that with us now. Thank you, Don.
Mike? Okay. What a difference a year makes. I stood up here last year and opened this event with a talk about blockchain, arguing that this was a big deal. Well, it turns out a lot of people think it is. Blockchain Revolution had not even been published then. It came out shortly after. And as you may know, it did very well. It's the big bestseller about blockchain, but it's being translated into like 14 languages. In some countries, it was crazy. In Germany, it's a bestseller in English and in German. And in Canada, it was competing with Harry Potter and an adult coloring book, whatever that is, as the #1 book. So we were very proud of it. And if you haven't bought it, the way to get it is in massive volume is the way to go. Christmas, not that far away. Okay, so let me just position what's going on here. At the World Economic Forum, and I'm an advisor to the forum, we like to talk about the fourth industrial age. First was steam, and we mechanized things like shovels. Second was electricity, and that enabled the industrial production line. The third was the computer, mainframes, minis, PCs, the internet, the web, mobile web, social media, and so on. And now we're entering into a fourth age where technology is infusing itself throughout everything. And many people say to me, well, you're into this whole blockchain thing. I mean, that's just another one of these interesting technologies, isn't it? Well, I suppose it is. But the way that Alex and I view blockchain is that it's not another in the list, that insofar as all these technologies will contribute to our economy and to wealth creation and to prosperity and to good institutions and governance and so on, we need an economic and a transactional platform for that to occur. So this is the second era of the internet, and it was quite terrific having Bob here because he invented the Internet of Information, and now we're moving into the Internet of Value. Now, having said that, Blockchain Revolution may have de-obfuscated some things, but there are still more questions than answers when it comes to the enterprise and organizations and how they use this technology. And it's time for a very deep and definitive investigation into what are the real use cases, what are the real opportunities, what are the real challenges, and what is to be done if you're a company or a government. So today we're launching the Blockchain Research Institute. And its first program that will go a little over a year is a multi-million-dollar investigation that will be conducting about 30 different projects, research projects looking into opportunities and challenges. And we're looking at 8 industry sectors: financial services, retail, manufacturing, technology, media and technology, healthcare, government and democracy, and what's not up there is energy and resources as well. And in each of those there will be projects trying to figure out what is to be done. We're also, orthogonally to all of that, looking at how does this affect the way you run a company? If you're the CFO, the CIO, the head of marketing, if you're running supply chain and asset management, if you're the head of the HR department, if you're the chief strategy officer, what are you supposed to do? and how should you be thinking about this technology, and how does it change not just your job, but that entire function within an organization. We'll also be looking at a whole number of other different projects in particular areas. And what I thought I'd do is just sort of give you a little slice of some things that I think are interesting. We haven't really decided we're going to do these yet because we're very interested in hearing what our members think. But I will just tell you who the initial round of members are. I got back from a vacation a couple of weeks ago. I said to Alex, the worst timed vacation in the history of vacations, given everything that's going on. And I've been on the phone with Alex for a couple of weeks, and we've rounded up about 20 companies. And the large organizations each pay a couple of $100,000. Oh, before I get there, I'll also mention that we're doing something that we call Lighthouse case studies. We don't want to do best practices because smart people already know all the best practices. We're looking for that little glimpse of something that might be a real game changer. I'll give you an example. I've been doing programs like this for 30 years, and we discovered a company called Auction Web. We figured the internet is going to change price discovery models. And we scoured the internet and we found this company. And they were organizing auctions. And we studied them. They had this way of syndicating trust in a network called the Feedback Forum. And we published this report, and just as the report came out, one of our researchers said, "You're not going to believe this. They just changed their name to eBay." And so I said, "Oh," back then we had paper reports, so I said, "Just publish it again." Did I invest at that time? No. A guy named Jeff Skoll, after that, invested $70,000, and that's worth $4.5 billion today. But I have a great report that I'm very proud of. So here are founding members in different classes. Founding technology companies. This is the big three as far as we're concerned when it comes to the enterprise. Accenture, the world's largest professional services company, IBM, the world's largest enterprise technology company, and SAP, the world's largest enterprise software company. And thank you very much for them. We also have digital asset and NASDAQ and financial services, and there'll be a whole bunch of banks and other industries, financial industries joining. Centrica is a big energy company in the UK. PepsiCo and Liberty Global is the second largest cable company in the world. And we're going to be introducing the program to government. So if you're from a government, we'd love for you to join us and to work with us. And then there are a bunch of companies we call blockchain entrepreneurs that pay a much lower fee. And because we want to use this as a way of sort of incubating action in the private sector, not just changes within the enterprise. So it's a great initial group, and it will be growing by another 30 companies in the next short period of time. We will not duplicate anything that's currently done or known. And so to ensure that, we're partnering with the key organizations that are doing deep work in this area. The Chamber of Digital Commerce, of course, is a good starting point, and they've been a great collaborator and partner all along. Enterprise Ethereum and Hyperledger, and we have people here from both of those today, and also Koala, that has some of the smartest people working on the issue of how does all this change the law. So let me just pick up a few quick topics about things that I find are interesting and that we may be looking into. One is, what does all this do to the firm, to the deep structure and architecture of the firm? Well, Ronald Coase, 80 years ago, Nobel Prize-winning economist, said, why do we have firms? If Adam Smith is right, the open market's the best mechanism for allocating information, people, money, resources, assets. Why isn't everybody an independent contractor at every step along the way in production? And he said the answer is, and he won a Nobel Prize for saying this, the answer is transaction costs. The costs of search, finding all the right people, money, whatever, and an open market prohibitive. So we bring it inside the boundaries of a firm where we have filing cabinets to find information and org charts to find people and so on. The cost of coordination, of getting all these people to work together, the cost of contracting, and the cost of establishing trust. Blockchain will devastate these 4 classes of transaction costs. And we think it will lead to a profound change in how we orchestrate capability in society to innovate, to create goods and services, to engage with the world. Now, in Blockchain Revolution, we talked about a number of very radical business models that weren't theories. They were emerging now, and we could see these. You know, Super Uber, a distributed app, some smart contracts and autonomous agents on a blockchain that could do everything that a $70 billion corporation does. But also, I don't know, pick any one of these. Every one of these needs exploration. Bigger and better data. What does it mean for big data when data is owned by the creators of data? All you create this data, but it's been expropriated by powerful data frackers, as we call them, Facebook and companies like that. And they drive steam down and blow up all this data, and basically they get to own it, which means that the largesse of the digital age has been asymmetrical. So rather than them sweeping up all these digital crumbs into the virtual you, your virtual identity in a black box will do the sweeping. And it will capture that data for you. And it'll be very stingy. You know, a lot of transactions, you don't even, as a seller, you don't even need to know who the buyer is, really. You just need to know you got paid with 100% certainty. So what happens when the virtual you is owned by you and you can monetize it? Maybe a whole new paradigm in how we manage data is emerging. Now, some of this gets pretty radical. This is from the book. But we theorized that you could have something called a distributed autonomous enterprise. We almost didn't publish it. We thought, this is so radical. People think we're a little nuts. You know, basically an organization with no management, no people. Just a bunch of distributed apps on a blockchain. And it could go out and raise some funds and go about its business. The week after we launched the book, of course, the DAO, D-A-O, got created. Now, there are lots of lessons there. One is if you're going to create an organization with no people that raises $163 million in 3 weeks by itself, you better make sure that your smart contract software doesn't have any coding errors. But let's not throw out the baby with the bathwater here. Bob Dylan, there's something going on here and you don't know what it is. This is a huge change that's in the making in terms of the architecture of the firm. Triple entry accounting. The role of the CFO has already changed dramatically as CFOs have gone from bean counters to becoming strategic players and usually the number 2 person in the C-suite. But what happens as we move to a whole new paradigm in accounting? You know, double entry accounting was the foundation of capitalism and the corporation. What happens when you have triple entry accounting? What happens when you don't really need an audit because you can have a real-time audit? And how do we get there? What does that mean for the job of the CFO? What does it mean for internal audit? What does it mean for the way that we do our financial planning and so on? I don't think anyone's really explored these. Smart contracts. Now, the Chamber held this wonderful event around smart contracts, and it was the first time people got together. But from the vote here today, most of you think that this stuff is really way out and is maybe not so valid. Well, our starting point is always, let's explore with an open mind as to the potential here, and then we'll convince ourselves that something might not work or that there are a whole bunch of implementation challenges that need to be overcome. And to be sure, smart contracts are not going to address every area of written understandings between people, but what are the real good ones? How do we get started? You know, Imogen Heap puts a song onto the internet, and the song is inside a smart contract. The song acts as a business defending the intellectual property rights of the rights creator. Well, that's a tiny little vignette of thousands of potential applications. What are the real good ones, and how do we make this stuff work? So we said in the book, the Internet of Everything needs a ledger of everything. When that power buys power from some distributed power grid brought to you by NASDAQ, it's not going to go through the Visa network. It's going to go through some kind of distributed ledger. There's lots of talk about this. We've found no real deep research about how this works. Sure, lots of people are experimenting, but it's one thing to experiment with technology. It's another thing to have a strategic view about the impact. What does this mean for the CIO? Is anyone here an IT sort of CIO type? Yeah. Architecture. This is the high ground, right? You know, you want to have a target architecture that's made up of models and of standards, and where you can have a migration plan to get there, and whereby new investments contribute to a desired future, as opposed to building up the legacy. Because if you don't have that, every dollar you spend makes things worse, right? So as we said, God may have created the world in 6 days, but he didn't have an installed base. And what does it mean to have a whole new paradigm in information technology for architecture? I've talked to CIOs everywhere. I can't find anyone who knows something about this. So we've got some people who are or have been CIOs who are very, very interested in this topic, and we want to tackle it. And that'll be a big value, I hope, to every CIO. I'm out of time here, so I'll just flip through. Blockchain central banking. As you know, Alex and I are both working with the central banks in many countries. And again, they're experimenting. But what does it mean strategically? What does it mean to have a fiat currency that becomes a cryptocurrency? How does that change not just the way you manage the money supply, how does it change the nature and role of a central bank in an economy? All kinds of juicy issues there. And the final one I'll raise, and it gets back to Bob, you know, if you look at the Internet of Information, there's a robust ecosystem that governs it. People hate that word govern. Well, you shouldn't. It doesn't mean top-down control. It's a self-organizing stewardship. And it turns out, and we did a big project on this, there are 10 different types of multi-stakeholder networks involved in the governance of the Internet of Information. There are standards groups like the IETF and the W3C Consortium, policy groups like the Internet Governance Forum. There are operational and delivery networks like ICANN that just do stuff. They deliver domain names. There are knowledge networks like the Internet Society that are disseminating knowledge. When it comes to the second era of the Internet, it's kind of like the Wild West right now. I mean, we don't really have a rich set of networks that are cooperating together to ensure that all of the big problems that have been discussed here today, and there are all kinds of them, like governments can still mess this up, that these problems don't occur. So we need to have a first of all, a taxonomy and a description of everything that currently exists. Did you know that there are 65 multi-stakeholder networks today that are involved in a very embryonic stage in trying to steward this resource? What are the good ones? What are the ones that matter? And what's missing? How can we move the ball forward? Because sure, we should all be out there building our business and using this technology within our enterprise, but the context is really key, and we all need to pay attention to the context too. Now, the Chamber would be a great example of one of these organizations. I think it's primarily an advocacy network, but it also does some other stuff. It does policy, and it does knowledge creation and other things. So this is a really exciting opportunity for us to start to collaborate together and to think together more. So Alex and I are going to be running this thing over the next period, but we're building up a team. And basically, what we're doing is a bunch of deep research. We think that this will be helpful for companies in terms of awareness and change, because there are all kinds of activities that are involved. There'll be a platform for the members to collaborate amongst each other. We are hoping that this will break some log jams and open up some new markets, that we can collaborate with people like the Chamber in influencing policymakers. And for sure, the players who are participating in this will get some market exposure. And there are lots of big expectations. I just took a couple of quotes here. Simon Lighthouse, Senior Managing Director. Is Simon here? Are you here? No. Okay. Accenture's a sponsor of this. But these people are super smart organizations, and they have high expectations. So we're going to have to build a great team. And that's the final point that I wanted to say to you. We're looking for help. And if you're someone who can work either as part of your current job or if you're an entrepreneur, an academic, and so on, and for each of these 30 projects, we're going to be building a team of the world's leading thinkers. And they'll be doing stuff like writing reports, creating other deliverables, infographics, videos, maybe even some computer-based learning. And if you are interested, please contact us. Tell us a bit about what you've done. We'd even be interested in knowing what you think is a big unsolved question in this space. So that's it. Blockchain Research Institute. As Alex said, join the revolution. And we're hoping that maybe by breaking some log jams here, that maybe we can move that timeline a little faster, and who knows, maybe this world of distributed trust that our kids inherit might actually be a better one. So thank you very much.